What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Advanced Auto Layout. I made a video a while back, but since then, Auto Layout has been updated by Figma, and there's now some new features like absolute positioning, negative space, and some other things that I'll talk about today and show you how you can use the new features, but also some of the old techniques that I taught about to show you how to create a fully adjustable, adaptable, scalable, and responsive interface like the one you see here. The benefits of auto layout is that it's just allowing you to work so much faster than if I had to push pixels here. And I'll give you a few examples. So if I want to move anything around in here, I can just use my arrow keys. If I want to adjust the positioning of these elements, arrow keys again. If I need to add something new to this list, you can see by just pressing Command D, everything is scaling and stretching the way I need it to. If you're not using auto layout today, or if you remember before auto layout in Figma, just how much pixel pushing you had to do for a simple stepper like this, I can just press Command D, add in a new step. Again, there's a little bit of adjustment that needs to happen here, but for the most part, the hard work is done for me. If I want to remove a step, very, very simple. So this just allows you to be a much quicker designer, honestly. You can make decisions much quicker. Your design isn't as impacted by the changes. I can delete things, move things around, restructure things, try new ideas. So if you're not sold on the benefits, I hope that gives you a little bit more insight into how you can use this to improve your workflow. So how do we do it? Let's start by creating this stepper that I have here. So I'll pull this out, just holding Alt. And I have my different steps that I've created. So first, just being the circle, below it is some text. So I can just bring these together, press Shift A. Another nice feature is that now auto layout kind of detects whether something should be centered or not, which is nice. I'm going to set this to 16 pixel spacing, and I have it sent down. So now I'll just hold Alt to create my next step. And then I can very simply just hold Alt and drag these other items into here as needed. And then I'll just delete the old items that I don't need anymore. I'll do that again a few times so you can see. The only difference here is that all of these steps that I have need to be the same size. So you see I'm using 40 pixels here. So for this smaller step, I just have it inside of an auto layout frame as well. I've set the dot to, or the circle to be centered, and then I've set it to fixed width and height. And I'll just show you real quick how that's done. So I have my dot that I've created, press Shift A, and now I just use the command down, command left, command right to set it to 40, and then centered. Pull out my text. And now, same thing here, I can just drop it inside of the existing auto layout that I have, delete the items I don't need. Perfect. So now, let me just make sure these all have 8. I want them to be the same size. So now I have my different steps. I select them, press Shift A to put them inside of an auto layout. And I want this to, as I stretch, I want my items to stretch as well. So right now I've set it to have 38 pixels. So that means every time that I scale, it doesn't matter the size of the container, it will stay with that 38 pixels. If I set it to auto, however, it doesn't care how much space it has between. It can go negative, it can go wide. It's going to automatically space those elements based on the size of the container that it's in. So now I'm going to use the absolute positioning feature, which is a new feature of auto layout. I'll show you how it works. So just press P, draw out a line. Now let's drag this into our auto layout. We'll see everything breaks. To fix that, we need to turn this item into an absolute positioned item. So that's what our line is going to be. Drag it down to be centered between these circles that I have. And now I'm just going to adjust it based on how I need it. So this is going to be my active steps line. I have it there. Come up here, press Option, Command C, come down here, Option, Command V to paste the styling. And then I can just press Command back bracket to send it to the back. So for this, I want, as I stretch, I want this line to scale. So as I stretch this, I want this line, because now this line isn't using auto layout properties. It's now acting as if it's in a regular frame. So I can set regular constraints. Whereas for these items, I'm setting auto layout constraints. Here I'm setting regular frame constraints. So I've set it to scale. That means as I change the size of my container, that line will scale. Same thing for the line that goes behind. I will just take this, press Command D, duplicate it, pull it, holding Shift, drag it to the size that I need, about there. Come up here again, Option Command C, Option Command V to paste the styling. And I'll just press Command back bracket to send it back. And everything should be working now. Let's see. Oops. And there we go. So now our stepper is complete. I'll just rename this to stepper. And now let's start creating the rest of our elements. So I have this picture that's happening over here to the left. I'm just going to pull this over real quick so that we can see how our page is going to be laid out. I'll create the next item. So I have this title that says skills for this role. I'll pull that down. And I want to set this to hug for now. And then once we put it in a container, we're going to set it to fill container. But I'll show you that in a second. So next up, I have this left container and this right-hand container as well. So let's make the right-hand container. So I'll just bring the title, skills for this role, and the stepper together using auto layout. Shift A. I want about 32 pixels spacing there. So now I can take the picture and my right content and bring those together with an auto layout as well. So now I have this big container here. This is kind of my interface, as you can see here. And then I have my different steps that I'll start dropping into here. So first things first, let's set both of these, my text and my stepper, to fill the container. And the reason I'm doing it for the text is because I want this to break down onto different lines. So that's why I have that set to fill the container. And then this is going to stretch as needed. So I want this to be set to fill the container as well. Awesome. So now just for styling, so we can see everything nice and clear, I'm just going to add my white background. I want to make another video where I focus more on how best to structure your file, because I think it's important to use components, color styles, all those good things as well. For the purposes of this video, I'm just focused on auto layout and showing you how best to do that. But if you'd like to see another video on structuring your file with components, color styles, typography styles, all of that, I think it's equally as helpful. All right, so now we have our container. If you didn't see what I did there, I basically just added the white background and then bumped up the padding here. So if you press, they've now broken padding into left and right, top and bottom. So if you press, or if you hold Command as you click into here, it overrides and allows you to type in padding value for all the way around. So I've added about 16 pixels there. Next up, let's create our search. So I'm just going to come over here and copy this over. I'll take one of these as well because I'm going to need this in a second. Take my button as well. All right, so for the search, I just have my text, set that to hug for now, and then we'll set it to fill container later. Bring these two together with auto layout. And now I'm just going to copy the styling here. Again, Option Command C, Option Command V. And now let's drag this into our layout. So we now have our search bar up here. I'll set that to fill the container. And the search text itself, also we want to fill the container, just because someone might come in here, type in a long text, and that should be able to fill the container. Once I add in the skill, I will fix the spacing in here. But at least for now, that's looking pretty good. Everything's filling the container. Everything should be stretching as needed. because I've set all of these items over here to fill the container. Next up, let's make our skill. So as someone types in a skill and they add it, it will then populate in a list below. So to do this, let me just pull this out real quick, press Command-Shift-G to ungroup it so I can show you how everything's structured. So the text itself, I want it to be fixed width and fixed height. So I've set it to 16 pixels wide. And over here, I have it set to auto height, but also fixed width. For the logo, right now the logo is just a group. I'm going to press Shift A. Oops, actually, let's just do Option Command G. This is one of the few places where a frame might work better, just so I don't have to add another group for my logo. So I pressed Option Command G to turn this into a frame. Now, if I hold Command, I'm going to pull this out to be 32 pixels. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to have different logos in here, as you can see, and they're all different sizes. So because I can't predict the width, I want my text to always line up on the same line. So you'll see here, I can show you real quick, all of my text is lining up nicely. That's because these are all in a container that's the same size. So things aren't shifting around. And the same thing for my text. So if I have 22 in here, it's going to be wider than if I just have 2. So I want that to be fixed width as well. All right, so now all I need to do is center my logo within this container that I've created. And now I can just select all 3 of these, press Shift A, and turn it into an auto layout. Same thing here. I have my text, years of experience, and I have my chevron down icon over to the right. I'm going to select both of those, press Shift A, turn that into an auto layout. I want it to be centered over here, 16 pixels between, and then I want my text to fill the container. So now I can just Option Command C, Option Command V, paste that styling over here. So you'll see, because I've set it to fill the container, that everything will break down onto 2 lines if needed. And in here, this will be whatever text that ends up going in there. So I have my drop down here. I have another one that says, nice to have skill. And then I just have my trash icon. So to structure this, I have my content over here on the left, content over here on the right, Shift A. I'd like 16 pixels spacing between those items. I can set it to right alignment. And now I can just bring these 2 together, Shift A again. And a quick tip, anytime you have a very large number in here, it's right now 117 pixels of spacing, chances are you want that to be set to auto. Not always, but kind of a rule of thumb, if you have a very large number for spacing, it's probably better that it would be automatically spaced over there. Okay, so now that container is working nice. I'll just copy the styling real quick, paste that. And now I can just drag and drop this into my layout. So now I have my skill over here, set that to fill container. And now I could very easily, let me just steal these real quick. I could very easily adapt this. So I add in my other 3, and I'm going to fix the spacing here in a second. But if I want to, I can just hold Alt, drag in the other ones that I need. So I have Adobe Illustrator. You'll see that everything is breaking for now. So let's fix that here in a second. My icon as well. Paste that in here. And then set this to say sketch. So the problem that's occurring right now is I don't have my text set to fill the container. I set it to auto. So in here, remember how we set this to auto? Auto is fine, but the only issue is that the container it's in is set to here we have the text set to fixed. So I made a small issue there. So let's fix that real quick. So we're going to set this to fill container for my text. And now if I press shift return or shift enter, it's going to bring me back out to my main container. I want this to fill the container as well. So what this now allows me to do is if I have a very long skill name in here, it's going to break down onto 2 lines, whereas before it was in a fixed width container. Okay, so now everything should be working nicely. Let's just test it out real quick and see. Okay, so our skills, our search, our stepper, everything is stretching. Now we can introduce other auto layout frames in here if needed as well. So our spacing down here is a little too much. So I'm just going to select the different items that I want, the search and the skills, and put those in an auto layout. So Shift A. And now I'll just bring this down to 16 pixels spacing as well. I can set that to fill container. So that is my main container is set to fill, but anytime you introduce a new auto layout frame, the items within are going to be set to hug or fixed. So if I press enter, I can drill in. So you'll see that my items are now set to fixed. I just want to set those to fill container as well. So now you'll see everything is working nicely. I have my years of experience drop downs staying over there nicely. So now I just want to drag in my button real quick. I can drop that down here. And that's it. That's our container. So we'll just call this main. Delete this. So now I want to show you 2 different ways that we can add the rest of the page in here. So normally I create my entire page as an auto layout. So I'll show you how we do that right now. So now that we have our container, everything is responsive. I can press Shift A to put this inside of another container. So now I would actually, this is my page name. And now I can just set this to be the size that I need. So if I press F real quick, we'll see that a desktop is 1440. So if I come back here, I can just set the width to be 1440. Okay, so now I have it set to my desktop size. I will set this to top center. And now this is actually my page. So you'll see that I can add in here. I'll just copy this color real quick. If I was to add more content, the whole page itself is going to stretch down. I'll just change my background color here real quick so you can see this more clearly. But you'll see that everything lives within this page, and we can set different sizes as needed. So I might want a little bit more padding, top, bottom, things like that. But this is actually my page. It's an auto layout as well. So there's 2 different ways that we can add this back banner into our design. So I'll show you that real quick. So first thing, I can just paste this inside of my design like that. Just copy it, click the frame and paste. I'll copy this over to show you the 2 different ways. So the new feature within auto layout, absolute positioning, I think works better, but you can also set this to be a negative value as well. So I'll press my up key real quick to send this up, and I'll show you how that works. So I could set this page itself to have no padding. I can add the padding in at the bottom as needed. And then I can set this to have a negative value. So let's say negative 200, or maybe even more. Maybe it's negative 224. So now I can come in here and add spacing to the bottom as needed. Let's say 64 pixels. And now this and this are set inside of my page using negative spacing. That's one way to do it. The way I prefer to do it is to actually set this back container as an absolute positioned item. So I can set that real quick. And now I can just bring it to the top of my page, use my back bracket, send it behind, reposition and size it however I need it. So let's say we want it about there. And then I can set it to left and right sizing, and it's going to be centered to the top. So now I can set this to fill container, and I can set my container to have some padding as needed. So in this case, a little bit of padding there. So those are the two different ways that you can do it. I prefer the absolute positioning. I think it's just a little bit cleaner than having this very large negative number, but both work. So now you can see as we stretch this out, everything's working as well. And over here, if I stretch this out, I would have to put this inside of another container because now my main container has this item in it already. So like I said, I probably wouldn't do it this way with the negative spacing, but you can, if you want to. You can just press Shift A, put this inside of another auto layout, set that container to fill, set this container to fill, and then now you just have to add the side padding to that container. So not the cleanest way to do it, but I wanted to show an example with the new feature of negative spacing, which I think is much more useful in other instances, but maybe for this example, you probably want your page structured a little bit more like this. So I can make my adjustments over here, but for the most part, this is our page. We can see that everything is nice and responsive. I have my different skills in here set up as needed. I have my search. Everything is flexible. I can add in different steps, make adjustments in here as needed, move everything around. So I hope you guys found this useful, helpful. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and stay tuned for some more videos coming up soon.